Guess what we watched?
You'll never guess. Did you just hit the camera with it?
Nope.
Oh. You're gonna give people a seizure. Stop it.
Yep, we saw Lost in Space.
Because I had to.
Okay, this is not about a Patreon request. This is a guy that we hang out with at Alcon, who came to London to meet us again, had listened to Lesbian Talk, our podcast, and said, and heard me say that I wanted to show Mega an excuse to show Mega Lost in Space, so he actually gave us a copy and asked to do a Backseat Critique.
And the trains, where was it? King's Cross? The famous one.
It was like Waterloo or somewhere.
Waterloo,
it was one of the big stations.
Yeah.
So he
decided, like, here, you know, Lost in Space, and we were like, oh, thank you.
So this was his way of making sure it happened, was giving me a copy and asking us to do a Backseat Critique.
We did eventually, months later. So
it was a good strategy and it worked.
It's not a very good movie.
It wasn't a good movie.
The script is really bad.
It was really bad.
No one talked the way people actually talk.
This is true.
People, like, well, did the exposition thing, well, as you know, things and stuff. And you're like, ugh.
This is a fair point.
Like, not to be feminist, but the female characters were just kind of there. They had nothing to do by themselves. Very little personality beyond, like, two-dimensional, like, character models.
Yeah.
And they were really just there to prop up the father-son narrative.
That is another fair point.
So it was like Fight Club with alien spiders.
In the
and less profanity.
Although the thing about the sort of female characters being underserved by the script, they decided to go for the father-son narrative. Okay, fair enough. But then in the TV show, the main characters, you know, the central characters evolved into like Dr. Smith, Will Robinson, and the robots, so they have to be central. And then West, if they want to have action stuff, they need to have Don West involved. So it kind of means that it happened organically rather than them being nefariously sexist.
No, I don't think they were nefariously sexist. It's just kind of like the whole thing is like, oh, you know, Will Robinson is so incredibly brilliant, he's a child genius, but nothing he does can get his dad's attention. Oh, he has an older daughter who is a medical doctor, which takes a shit ton of schooling, and you have to actually know what you're doing. You can't, like, be stupid and be a doctor.
Yeah.
You know? Except, like, Ben Carson. But maybe that happened afterwards.
He was a surgeon.
Maybe, oh, yeah, that's true.
You know, as my father, who was a retired doctor, said, I think he put it, he was quoting someone, or this is someone else, and I'm putting the words into his mouth, but surgeon is basically a plumber, but for the body.
Ooh. Shots fired. Then there's Penny, the middle daughter, who's just...
Who is
there?
Who's Lacey Chambert, a.k.a. the star of Christian Mingle the movie.
Like, it's really weird because, so, you know, she's got that little rebel thing going on, but she also has this awkward tween little bitchness going on.
Yeah.
But then, like, every single one of her lines is pure 100% cringe because she was written to be, like, hip and with it. And, like, you know, in language that is from the 90s but comes across as now, hello, fellow teenagers, I am also a teenager. And it's just so bad because no teenagers talk like that. Because I was a teenager at the time this movie came out and I didn't talk like that. And
I'm not recognizing much of the teenagers at the time this was made, which is like 1987.
It's kind of like the whole, like, attitude and things and stuff.
Okay, but
lots of eyeshadow.
Her style and vocabulary, though, was not 1987. They were trying to basically make it timeless by coming up with new stuff, which worked, basically.
But it was that whole, like, 90s attitude kind of thing, like, too hip for you.
Yeah, that's there.
Adults.
But the other parts of her sort of, you know, them attempting to be, you know, cool and all, was a bit more timeless because they weren't actually trying to ape the 90s.
Yeah, that's true.
It was done semi-successfully.
But it was just, she had no point, like, because basically, like, so her older sister is a doctor, and her younger brother is a super genius. You kind of have to feel for her, because she's just, like, there. And even in her rebellion, she doesn't really rebel all that much. And, like...
She just invents vlogging.
Yeah.
But I remember watching this at the time in the cinema, thinking it was the stupidest thing anyone could ever do, would be have a camera and, you know, talk into it, and as though anyone on the other side of the camera would give a shit about it.
Oh, how the worm has
So, you know, Penny gets to laugh at me.
As we're talking to a camera, as if we're talking to other people, and not the wall. No, but it just actually made me feel kind of bad, because, like, in the beginning, like, the mom says, Penny was dragged home by security for the third night in a row. But yet, she didn't get any trouble over this. Like,
what are they going to do?
So,
ground her?
I know, basically, but like, not even in her rebellion, she fails. Like, I really felt bad for her. And
then we saw deleted scenes from the end, which revealed that they actually were going to give her something to do, and then they cut it from the movie.
Aye. They paid for a huge alien practical effect done by Jim Henson's
I think it was done by Jim Henson's, yeah.
And then just never used it. So I'm like, what a waste of money that was.
Yeah.
Like full animatronics and everything it looked like.
It's like, I really wish they hadn't cut that out.
But, oh, it was so bad. None of the science made sense. And it just...
Oh, it's 12 degrees of not making sense.
Like, even like from the beginning, like, oh, we're going on this super critical mission. And like, oh, everyone's going to be depending on you to save the world, but I hope you bring your children on this incredible...
It's going to take you 10 years to get from the Earth to this planet here, and then at that point, once you get there, then you're going to assist these guys in building a giant hyperspace gateway thingy, which we don't know how long it'll take. However, the Earth is going to be uninhabitable in 20 years, so you better do it pretty fucking quickly.
Yeah.
Even though the one that they're building on Earth is like a quarter done, they have the entire Earth doing, and then the other planet, you've got a couple of scientists who are apparently already there for some reason.
Can you not Skype with them?
And
like...
the entire, and this family of like 3 adults and 2 children. So this does not make sense.
Terrorist resistance force that apparently is funded by a coalition of like what's his face, Richard Branson and Elon Musk, because they have their own spaceships. They have billions of credits.
They're building their own hypergate.
To colonize Alpha Centauri themselves. Who the fuck is funding this? China?
Are they living on Mars? Where they?
There's not that many places you can build a hypergate and not be seen. I ain't saying. I'm saying it's not like you can do it in your basement.
The script in this is a fucking abysmal. Having said that, the little bits of world building technology, there's a lot of cool little things. I saw this several times in the cinema when it first hit cinemas.
She admits it.
Because I liked the cool stuff. I also liked the music, Apollo 440 and all. The soundtrack to this was actually one of the first CDs I bought. Oh. Because it had a really good soundtrack.
Do you want to know the first CD that I had? Mm-hmm. Well, okay, the first 3 CDs, because I got them for Christmas one year, the same year that I got a boombox CD player. Mm-hmm. Billy Joel's River of Dreams and Billy Joel's Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2.
I think this is far better.
School. Shut up,
That does not feature Crystal Method and Death in Vegas.
River of Dreams is a great song. I'm going to listen to it on YouTube when we're done.
It has no Apollo 440.
Don't know why I go walking at night, but I'm tired and I don't want to walk anymore.
But there's a lot of cool little things in here, like, from the pilots sort of wearing these contact lenses that sort of like let them see basically the screens that would be in front of them are actually in their eyes now. It's
like Google Glass, except
it's horrifically impractical, I suspect, but it was pretty cool looking. A lot of stuff in this was cool but impractical, like the fact that the cryopods were up in like an alcove in the ceiling when there's nothing but space on the ground. All that does make it slightly more likely that they're going to fall out.
I suspect that that's a security measure to keep people from tampering with them. Like, suppose only half the crew is in cryo at one point in time.
If enemies get on board the ship, they're fucked regardless.
Well, not just enemies, like your own crew. Like, sabotage is also a thing.
You think one of the kids is going to kill their
No,
parents?
because it wouldn't be designed specifically for that family. That cryopod design is probably, like, oh, here, it can fold back up, so then you can make use of the space, and that's also a security measure.
Okay, maybe.
You don't just design several hundred patents for one family. Like,
sure you
this was a prototype that obviously they would be using again.
And this one you've got the original Lost in Space ship sort of being used as a launch ship, but then this is the most impractically shaped thing for a launch ship possible, because it's just a big fucking flattened ball. And then, of course, it explodes to create the one from this thing, which ironically would have been a far better one to get to escape velocity from the Earth. Why didn't they just launch it from space?
Because...
And lose the outer hull in the initial disaster.
I said, who wrote this? And you were like, oh, Akiva Goldsman. And I was like, who the hell is that?
And I was like, this guy is an A-list Hollywood hack. His list of things he has written...
that were really bad, but here's the thing.
It's like a list of abuse victims.
He also wrote one of my favorite movies ever, Practical Magic. That was really good. I really love that. I watched that like a few times a year.
He wrote that back to back to back with this and Batman
but here's
and Robin.
the thing, though. Practical Magic was adapted from the book by Alice Hoffman, and Alice Hoffman is an amazing writer, and the book was amazing. So,
although, let's be honest, let's be absolutely clear here. Academy Award winner Akiva Goldsman, he won an Academy Award for A Beautiful Mind.
apparently that was a really good movie, though. I mean, I didn't see it.
I doubt the script was good.
Oh, but everything about this was bad, and it made me annoyed. Like, I hated Will Robinson, because here's the thing. Alright, here's the thing. I'm gonna lay it all out for you. You ready?
No.
I'm laying some truth down. Like, okay, I really, really despise the child genius trope. I really, really hate that. Because you want to know something? I was a child genius. And guess what? It was not like that. It was a lot of awkwardness. It was a lot of not having access to other really important cognitive parts of your brain because other parts are heavily wired. It was people looking at you and saying, why can't you do XYZ simple thing? You're really, really smart. And to the point where as an adult, I was like, I'm not really, really smart. I'm not rich, and I can't do math. And then, you know, now I'm doing a PhD. But still, I really, really hate the whole really, like, either, like, really well-adjusted, you know, child genius. Because the brain has physical limitations. And sometimes to get really good benefits in one part, you have to sacrifice stuff. I mean, savants are a really good example of this. Or you have the trope of a savant. And savants are really rare. And the thing about savants is they can do some really amazing stuff, but they have some really severe deficits as well. Do some research. It just, the whole thing really annoyed me. I hate the way that brains are just played with like that.
Omega clearly hates Shuri from Black Panther.
No, she's awesome.
She's a child genius.
Yeah, but isn't she supposed to be like 18 or 19?
No, 16.
That's on the cusp.
See, now you don't like her.
It's on the cusp. But here's the thing, though. We know that a hell of a lot of education has gone into her.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's not like, you know, she's running around primary school with her time machine. She has the access.
Well, he was working on a time machine. He hadn't built the time machine until he became Jared Harris.
Well, she's got access to, like, the top technology maybe on the planet.
And if she became Jared Harris, just think of the stuff she could do then.
And here's the thing, like, we know that wasn't Tony Stark was doing some stuff like, you know, like that in uni. Like, young Tony Stark was
doing something.
Yeah. So we could say that she had a significant benefit because of her Wakandan upbringing, even to Tony Stark being born into the lap of luxury.
Yeah.
You know, and having all of, you know, his white privilege.
Because Wakanda's got better technology.
Like so we could say she's a few more years advanced than Tony Stark.
If you put Tony Stark and her with absolutely no benefits, you know, on the same level, it'll be interesting to see who would win the fight. I think the general MCU answer from the makers of the films is that Shuri would win. Yeah.
But so I do counter that it's on the cusp, but she has reasons why it's okay. But I still hate and any other kids. Other viewers who, as kids, were told, "Oh, you're incredibly brilliant, but why are you such a fuck up?" and empathize with me. Comment below, write the show, and tell us your trauma. We'll share it with you.
And on the subject of Black Panther, you were really impressed with the fact that Black Panther ripped off this film's holographic interface thing.
Oh yeah, I was like, hey, just like that thing that was really cool in Black Panther.
It's like, yeah, Lost in Space. Lost in Space came up with a lot of things which later on were used. A lot of MCU stuff, like there is the bit where Will Robinson takes control of the robot, you know, and you get a holographic thing around him. He's going like,
and it's kind of like Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah, and it's basically what they did in Black Panther. And then you've got the fucking awesome slide down helmet thing that they put in Matt LeBlanc.
But he only uses it once.
He only uses it once, but that is one of the cool sort of little things that I liked in the film, and it's that sort of thing is basically a mid-level Iron Man suit, or the Silver Centurion suit from Iron Man 2. And there's lots of little things like that, and I really wish they were attached to a better script.
Oh my god, and it was so obvious that, like, this was sequel bait, because they're like, uh-oh, here we go again.
I did read an interview with Akiva Goldsman where he actually talked about the serious deficits that the film script had, and he tried to explain why the problems developed. But he said that he had actually written a treatment for the sequel, and it would have actually been a lot more like Lost in Space.
Well, you only get one chance to ruin things.
At this point, in this franchise, yes. In other franchises...
and there was like a little sentient thingy that was...
Lop.
apparently was a recreation of a character that was actually played by a chimpanzee in a space helmet in the original.
Something like that. Bloop in the original show. And
the CGI was just not there for that.
They
could have literally like dressed Andy Serkis up in a costume, and it would have been better than what they got.
They really should have gone for like a practical effect there.
How old was Andy Serkis then?
This is
probably
like
20 years ago. Probably.
He was probably like early 30s. See, this is a few years before Lord of the Rings started filming, but what they should have done on the practical thing, but they really wanted it sort of rushing around and being all impressive and stuff. They failed. I also remember an interview with Goldsman where he talked about how in the script Blarp was written as more of a dragon-y type thing,
that'd be cool.
Sort of more threatening, less like a Disney character.
Yeah, that's really
and that was the director's choice, and he wasn't too happy with it. So
yeah, there was a deleted scene that they hadn't done the CGI yet, so it was basically the storyboard animation for Blarp, which actually looked a lot cuter and a lot more awesome. They should have just hand animated it, like something out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
It looked like full Who Framed Roger Rabbit instead of like a crap CGI recreation of it.
But what else? And Gary Oldman was just like the master. Gary
Oldman as Anthony Ainley's master.
He was the master. I was being so evil.
It's so funny. You've got everyone else is taking the film, or at least they're trying to treat the film seriously. Dr. Smith's dialogue has either been heavily ad-libbed or it has been scripted as a pantomime that's existing inside what's attempting to be a family, though.
Don't you know I'm a monster?
Hard-edged family sci-fi movie, and it's really distracting.
Yeah, like the tone was all over the place. Like, is this for kids? Is this, for people with daddy issues? Like, just, Dad, you said you'd come back. Dad, you missed my science thing. Dad, I just. I mean, I understand. Like, mother issues and father issues attachment is one of the most primary schemas that you form in your brain development. I won't lie. But the thing is, there's doing it right. Like, even though it was horrific to get through, AI. AI was a movie that did mother issues perfectly.
I laughed
to the point.
AI.
Well, but that's because you don't have any mother issues, do you?
AI was crap.
All right.
I liked the Flesh fair bit with where Ministry turned up, playing What About Us, where they killed robot Chris Rock. It was awesome.
I went to see AI, and I want to let you know that sitting next to me was a friend who had lost her mother to horrific stage 4 pancreatic cancer about 6 months previous. We didn't know what the movie was about. We just wanted to go see it. And in the scene, spoilers if you haven't seen it, I mean, for Christ's sake, it's been 20 years, get over it. There's a scene where the mother leaves the wee robot boy in the forest, and he goes, "No, Mommy, don't. I'll be a good boy. I promise. I'll do things and stuff." And I looked around, and everybody had their eyes just wide on the screen, and I realized, and see, this is why I was gonna become a psychologist. I realized that every single person with mother issues was substituting their own issues in their heads. Like, "Mom, please, I'll be a good boy. I won't be gay. I promise her. I won't take drugs anymore. Like that." And I looked over to my friend Claire, and her face was just pale, and she just had no facial expression. I said, "Are you okay?" Just no response. Are you all right? No, just one tear starts running down. After we saw AI, we went back to Kean's flat, and oh my God, we drank so much. We smoked so much I think it was some stupid Adam Sandler movie. I can't even remember. Just to wipe the taste of that movie out of our heads.
Well, I wanted to wipe AI's taste out of my head too, because just think what Spielberg did to Kubrick's work.
But what I mean is, the reason we felt we had such a strong reaction, okay, besides Claire, who just lost her mother, was because it was done right in a way that affected us. Like, I can't say because I'm not a guy with father issues, but I imagine the same way that Fight Club did for a lot of guys that I knew. But I felt like this was very heavy-handed. Like, "You are my son and I will protect you. You are my father. You're supposed to protect..." We get it. It's so heavy-handed.
One of the things that you're never going to be able to stop thinking about when you watch this film, at least the second half of this film, after you find this out, Bill Mumy, who played Lanier in Babylon 5 and was the original Will Robinson, was
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was originally supposed to play older Will Robinson, but I've heard conflicting reports about why he dropped out. Either he wasn't unable to do it because he was working something else, or the director decided it would be too confusing or too distracting to have the original Will Robinson there, or something. But just think, thematically, for people who watched the original show, how wonderful would it have been to see Bill Mumy play older Will Robinson?
I loved Lanier. He was one of my favorite characters in Babylon 5.
But in the end, he was played by Jared Harris, a.k.a. Crozier from The Terror, coming up.
But he did look like, what's his face? William Hurt.
Him and William Hurt, yeah,
So
they could play brothers, yeah.
But yeah, and there was dodgy science, and then Dr. Smith became a spider, but not really, but then we're just going to ignore the fact that that's still happening, but we're just going to have him around.
And I spent half the film trying to work out the mechanics of their time travel.
She did, I was looking at Twitter.
They're quite clearly going for like a predestination paradox until Will and Dr. Smith go into the bubble, and which creates a divergence in the timeline. Fair enough. However, this doesn't make sense because apparently these bubbles are being created by the time travel experiment, but they can only have met the Proteus and crashed on the ship if they had the time bubble. So there's going to have to be it's an imperfect loop, which means that the loop will change each time. When it comes to time travel, you've got either a perfect predestination paradox, which is an Ouroboros, a circle, or you've got one which is an imperfect loop, which is you've got it happens, and then it happens again, but slightly different, and then it happens again, slightly different, slightly different.
So a spiral.
Yes. In this one, that's the Terminator. And this is the thing that Terminator Genisys was trying to get across, and they utterly failed. That each time Sarah Connor is saved, or John Connor is saved, or whatever, or Judgment Day is delayed, it creates a change in the timeline, but it will inevitably happen again because it's an imperfect loop. I'm doing a Renegade Cunt about Planet of the Apes, and I'm basically suggesting that it is an imperfect time loop.
Time travel makes my head hurt. That's why I never used it as a narrative.
But this imperfect time loop does not work. It requires a perfect loop for the events to happen. So the theory I was coming up with while watching it, because it's been a long time since I saw it, was that the original Will Robinson had, they'd crashed on this planet, and then the other ones had died, and then he built the time machine, and then it created bubbles, say 25 years in the past and 25 years in the future, making the divergence point when the ship arrived, rather than much later on. Of course, that doesn't work because Dr. Smith turned into a spider, because they got to the Proteus, which is obviously 25 years. It's in a different time period. I am suggesting, however, if the Proteus was already there when they crashed, maybe I might come up with a Renegade Cunt trying to make sense.
Everyone's just ignoring that he's eventually going to turn into a spider.
I'm much more interested in trying to work out the mechanics of how this time travel works, because I might end up doing a Renegade Cunt out of it. Because my current feeling is that you got the three time zones. You've got the original one where they come in, and then they go through the time barrier, and they end up in a second one, which is where the Proteus is, and I think that's 50 years in the future. And then they land on the planet, and then they find the time bubble that Will Robinson was building, which is 25 years in the past from 50 years in the future, making it 25 years from where they started. So I think the 3 time periods, and Will has created 2 time bubbles, one in the future, one in the past, and allowing the ones from the past to get in there and go like future, past. If I work this out 100%, it'll become a Renegade Cunt.
I have a headache already. This was not a very good movie. We watched it.
Then you got the problem at the end when it's like, okay.
Oh no, this is a whole nother
the bubble collapses, and so the dad cannot escape. Get back. Okay, so the timelines have been cut apart. There's no more portal. However, then they try to escape the planet, and the guys who are on this entirely different era,
decades later
or earlier, they see the ship explode and crash.
How could they have seen it if it's taking place in another time?
Yes. Although if Will was in the future of those events, he could have found pieces of the ship. Although I'm suggesting Will was actually in the past of that event. But so then they send him the dad back in time to avert them from dying, and they decide to go down into the planet, which is incomprehensibly stupid in its own thing. And then they get stuck into a black hole, because the planet turns into a black hole. Fair enough, a time machine exploding, we don't know if it'll create a black hole.
Okay, time machine, yeah.
And then then they have to use the hyperspeed thing in order to get away from that. So
one of the plot points was they didn't have enough power to get the thrusters to get them to break atmosphere, but yet they can power the hyperdrive.
Yeah, and they
I'm just saying.
They don't have enough power to get off the planet, but they have enough power to
break
go up,
a weak atmosphere.
and they go down, and then go through the planet, which, they say they're using gravity, the planet's gravity, to help them, which is fair enough until they reach the center of the planet, in which point it becomes harder again. So this is exponentially harder to leave the planet, so this makes no sense. What they should have done is just united those two things at once and have them going up, and then down, and then hyperdrive just before they hit the planet, so then they'd end up somewhere else. And it would have made the film about 3 minutes sooner. 3 minutes shorter.
But yeah.
I'm a genius.
The 90s happened. And everything was pretty. So I hope that's been everything you dreamed of and more. Everyone who said in the comments, oh, maybe I should watch Lost in Space.
She loved it.
No, I didn't. I hated it. I thought it was bad. Cringy. Bad dialogue. No. Oh. So, I hope it was all you dreamed of and more, friends.